Hey everyone, Errol here. Hope you're doing well. Just a quick message for you before we go into today's podcast episode. I want to say a big thank you to everybody out there that supported our campaign for the Rising Generation book, which takes place during the month of October 2016. If you don't know already, our goal is to get pre-orders, 1,000 pre-orders of the book during that 1 month campaign and raise money from that for our work in Ghana. In Easter next year, we're going into Ghana to rural communities to work with young people, to give them leadership training and soft skills training and so much more. All the profits from this campaign are going to help us to go out there and do that work and impact the lives of thousands of young people. But we need your help, guys. If you've not signed up already, please sign up. The link is in the show notes here on our website, www.errollawson.com/podcast. You can find it there, or go to the website link Publishizer, www.publishizer.com/the-rising-generation, and you'll find out all the information there. Thank you for your support, guys. God bless you. Enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson. If this is your first time joining us, we want to welcome you. It's great to have you with us today. The Rising Generation exists to inspire and equip Christian leaders from all walks of life, from all around the world, to fulfill their God-given potential. By hearing these interviews with established, internationally recognized leaders, we hope you'll be inspired to connect the dots between where you are now and where it is God has called you to be. Now, to receive notifications about future episodes, simply subscribe to our podcast show by either on iTunes if you're on Apple, or on Stitcher, the Stitcher app if you're on Android. You can find out how to do that just by going to our webpage at www.errollawson.com/podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends, share it with your loved ones. Hopefully they will also benefit from the content. Guys, thanks for listening. Before we go into today's show, here's some news for you.
Christian coaching is where more and more leaders turn to increase leadership effectiveness and move forward toward their destiny. If you're looking for a great coach who understands ministry leadership and business principles, connect with Errol Lawson. Errol is a member of the John Maxwell Coaching, Speaking, and Training team and has extensive experience in ministry and Christian leadership training. What do you need to take your ministry, business, or personal life to the next level? Errol can help you refocus, meet a challenging goal, reconnect with your passion for ministry, navigate a transition, or bring balance to your life.
Hello and welcome to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast again today with me, Errol Lawson, and my very special guest is Romeo Effs. Romeo is known as the business gladiator. He's a fixer and a strategist, and he's the founder and CEO of Empire Builders. He's an expert in helping senior professionals and entrepreneurs to solve problems, manage crisis, build reputation, and make quantum leaps in their life, career, or business. He's an amazing executive coach and a C-suite mentor who brings his over 25 years experience as a corporate executive and entrepreneur to lead those he works with feeling fired up and equipped to conquer and achieve their objective and their vision. Romeo, thank you for joining us today, my brother. It's great to have you, man. Listen, I know you do so many things, but take a moment, if you will, please, and fill in any gaps there in your biography and give us a glimpse into what you're up to in the world right now.
Thank you very much for having me, Errol. Good seeing you, man. So in terms of gaps in the bio, you kind of said it all. That's like what I'm doing now. It's, I have started my first business at age 16. Started over 20 odd businesses since then. As usual, some of them fail, some of them have been successful. That's just part of life. And have been a senior exec since the age of 25 up until the point when I left corporate 3 years ago to focus more on my business. And a lot of, when I tell people that, they said so how did you manage that? But most times I have been working in corporate and also running a business because, entrepreneurship has always been the thing that tugs at my heart. But, especially when you come from a black family, it's all about, your parents don't understand what entrepreneurship is. You need to go to university, you need to become a lawyer or a doctor because, mommy wants to go to church and boast about her son and, his job and that kind of stuff. So you get the sense that you have to have that cushion. So yeah, but I've dipped in and out of corporate, and I've done several things.
So how did you know then that this is what God had called you to do?
The funny thing about it is that I have, so I believe that God plants a seed in everyone's heart, right? And no matter if the seed He plants in your heart is to bake cakes or to be a chef, and He plants that same seed in someone else's heart, no one will do it the same way you will do it, because He is giving you a different way of doing it. Your purpose is different. So I think I figured it out like 10 years ago. So ever since I was young, I've always been helping people. I've always been the one who would help people with their homework at school. I've always been the one um, who would try to give people advice in terms of getting out of business issues. I've always been the one to help people when they want to start their own business or things in their lives. But it didn't dawn on me until like 10 years ago when I got this kind of revelation that this is really what I was supposed to do, but I didn't know how to do it. I was one, scared. Two, I didn't know how I could make money out of it. So I just kept pushing it aside. But the funny thing about it, Errol, is that when God has a purpose for you, no matter how you push it aside, He always pushes you back on that journey.
So what were you doing beforehand then, and how did you transition into what it is that you're doing now? Like, how did you get into this?
So just to kind of give you a little backstory. So over the years, I've in 2010, I was working in corporate and got this opportunity. Was made redundant, and so I remember, just lying on the grass in the back of my house and just kind of saying to God, what's happening? I had this great job, earning, over 150K a year. What's happening? And then, something just came to me like, and said, I've given you what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So a few days later, I'm in my study at my house and I'm cleaning out a drawer. And as soon as I opened the drawer, I spotted this folder marked Empire Builders. And I pulled the folder out. And that was the folder that I created like 10 years ago. Because I have this thing called an ideas folder. And I started reading through it. And I'm seeing everything that I wrote 10 years ago. And a big smile came across my face. And so I said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. So I went and I started doing it. And then I got a call from a friend. A huge contract came up at the Office of National Statistics. And so once again, running after the money, I parked what God had given me to do and dashed off after this thing, right? And totally forget about it. And then a year passed and I came home, Errol, and I had a friend of mine who was living in my house. He was homeless, so I took him in, knew him from Jamaica. And I came home, a long story short, and saw the police at my house. Someone broke into my house, stabbed him to death 9 times on the floor in my house. The funny thing about it is that I was supposed to be in the house at that time. And if when we have time again, I'll tell you that, God put so many delays in my way to prevent me from actually being able to be in that house. My life was saved. And so I remember I had to be staying at a friend's house because the police took my house because it's a crime scene. And I'm lying there and I'm like, God, what is happening? It's like, the last couple of years has just been like turmoil. Like, why is this happening in my life? And Errol, No lie. Once again, the thought comes into my head, because I've given you what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to do it. So once again, I went out on the journey, Errol, started doing this thing. And, sometimes, as my mother said, sometimes the devil doesn't put bad things in your way. Now, sometimes the devil puts some nice, glowing stuff in your way to distract you from where you're supposed to be, right? And so I started off on this journey, and then, I met my current business partner. And I started telling him about the dream that I have of wanting to help people to grow in their career and grow in their business, and to coach and mentor people to become the best version of themselves. And so I told him the whole idea of, the business builder program I'm putting together. And he's like, look, why don't we, start investing in businesses, and then, we can bring our expertise in, et cetera, et cetera. Once again, I'm like, yes, that's where the money is going to come from. So, I have just kind of, in my head, I'm saying, you know what, I'm going to trick God right here now, right? Look at me with my little pea brain about tricking God. I'm like, okay, I'm going to still do the mentoring and coaching, but at the same time, I'll be able to make some money, because that's what, by investing. A year went by, Errol, and in August last year, boom, I had a brain aneurysm.
Jesus. Wow.
One, like, it was like someone just hit me in my head with a baseball bat. And, boss man, I lost sight. I lost mobility in my left side completely. And I remember taking out my iPhone and just pressing it and said, Siri, call 999. And when I called 999, the lady said to me, look, it sounds as if you're having a stroke. Can you get yourself to the hospital? Because if we were to send you an ambulance, you might not survive. So I asked this guy, I dragged myself downstairs. As soon as I dragged myself downstairs, Errol, because the guy even said to me, look, I need to call you a cab, because cabs don't come around here that often. Boss man, as soon as I got downstairs, a black cab pulled up. The guy came out of the black cab, put me in the taxi, drove me to St. Thomas's Hospital, got me a wheelchair, wheeled me into urgent care, and disappeared. He didn't even collect 1 cent. And when I got to the hospital, the doctors said to me, look, you are having a stroke. And I said to them, no, I'm not having a stroke. And he says, Mr. Effs, I'm serious. You're having a stroke. I said, Doc, I am not having a stroke. And he said, look, we need to get you to King's College Hospital. So they called the ambulance, and I'm in the ambulance heading to King's College Hospital. And I remember in the ambulance, all I said was, I said, God, I am not asking you right now. I am telling you, anywhere you have those healing angels, send them right now, because I have work to do. And when I got to King's College Hospital, they said to me, they did some tests, did a lumbar puncture, everything, and they said, you're having an aneurysm. They said, Mr. Effs, we don't know how you do it, but the amount of red blood cells that we have found in your spinal fluid, you should not be alive. They said anyone who have suffered this kind of aneurysm, 99% of people who suffer this aneurysm don't survive. He says, boss, you're a miracle. And I said to him, Doc, it's not a miracle, I'm just blessed. And I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. And all the time I was in the hospital, I kept thinking, why is all of the last 4 years has just been so, like a roller coaster. What's going on? And Errol, no lie, thought comes back into my head, because I've given you what you're supposed to do. And it was in that hospital bed, I said, you know what? To hell with it. You know what? I give up. I'm just going to do it. I called my business partner. He came to visit me, and I said, look, I want to exit out of the private equity, because this is what I want to do. And the good thing about it, he's also very spiritual. So, he got it. And ever since then, I took some time off, and ever since then, I have just decided that, no more fuffing around. This is what I'm going to do. And the funny thing about it is that when I was in the hospital, the only thing I kept thinking about was Empire Builders, and the revelation of how to monetize it, what I needed to do, all of that. Pretty much just kind of kind of came to me.
So a lot of people listening right now, they're going to be emerging leaders or established leaders, and they're in their leadership journey, and they're thinking about how they navigate, their next step. How do they move forward? From hearing your story, what is the lesson, do you think, for someone listening right now? What's the takeaway for them?
I think the lesson is that if you have identified that seed in that God has planted in your heart, if you believe, like that this is what you're supposed to be doing, don't second guess. Just do it. Just go ahead and do it. Just have the faith and the trust in God and in the process that it's going to happen. Because the thing is that all you need to do is just to start taking that first step, and just believe and trust in God to just kind of move people, places, and things to make it happen. So that is what I would say.
Are you seriously fired up about growing as a leader in business or church-based ministry? Are you feeling somewhat frustrated about not having realized your full potential in what you've been called to do? Could you do with someone to help you get some extra clarity or to be a sounding board for your plans and ideas? Great athletes have coaches, so do great leaders. The right leadership coach for you will result in an increased sense of clarity, direction, and purpose, dramatically increasing the results you achieve. If you're ready to step up, contact Errol to book a free, no-obligation, introductory coaching session and see whether Errol is the right coach for you. Errol takes the lessons learned from his own leadership journey and from his extensive research to help leaders and entrepreneurs to step into their biggest challenges and rise to their next level. Email admin@errollawson.com right now to schedule your call.
Okay, so what's been your biggest challenge along your leadership journey so far? Tell us that story, if you will, the lessons learned there.
What would I say my biggest challenges are? So it's having faith in the middle. It's like, so I'm a very impatient person. I want everything. So, all my life I've always been able to go after things and been able to achieve them, without much effort. But I think over the past couple of years, as we were saying before, starting this business has been the most difficult business that I've ever had to start. And, as my mom always says to me, she says, look, there can be no testimony without a test, right? And so it's about just knowing that, just believing that you're on the right path, and also just having that faith and that trust in the process. You have to honor the struggle. And that has been a big challenge for me. Yeah, that's been a huge challenge for me.
What's been the lesson learned from that? What have you?
So the lessons learned from that is the whole notion that you have to know that. Okay, so my grandmother told me a story when I was much younger, and this came back to me the other day. She said to me that you need to realize that when you were born, there was a plan already for your life. Right? She said it's like the plan was made, and then God took a step back and said, okay, so who can I make to fulfill that journey? And then you were made. So she's like, there is already a plan. So you just have to just keep stepping and trusting that you will get there. So the lesson learned for me is the whole notion that I've had to be able to develop this unwavering trust in the process and this unwavering faith in God,
So that developing that trust, right? I know so many people listening are probably stuck in the middle right now,
Yeah.
And they're stuck in the middle, and they're doubting themselves, they're questioning, they're questioning their own ability, capacity, their worthiness, even. Just speak to that person, if you will, for a moment, and just maybe guide them through that.
So, I mean, like some of the things that I do in order to help me to develop that trust and that faith is you know, I talk to God, man. It's not about. A lot of people think that it's about, just going down on your knees and being holy than thou art. No, I talk to him like I'm talking to you right now. I'm walking down the street and I'm like, brethren, what's going on? Why is this happening? What can you do? Just give me a sign, man. Just let me know. And I tell him, I'm like, look, you realize that the payroll needs to be paid this week, right? And I'm on this journey not because of me. I'm on this journey because of you.
Wow.
It's your glory. Everything that I'm doing is in your honor and your glory, right? And the fact is that if everything in this world belongs to you, if you have built all this prosperity and all this, every money in this world belongs to you, to you. That this is what I said to him, and I'm like, look, I'm your son. So therefore, I should have first dibs, right? So I shouldn't be going through all of this, right? So you just help me to make something happen, and that's how I talk to him, boss, right?
And so now where you're at right now, how do you now define success then? Because I'm sure that definition may have changed over the years.
Absolutely. Because growing up, I always thought that success was about material things. I always thought that success was just about the house and the cars and the private jets and all, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. If you get that along the way, fine. But success means different things to different people. And I'll share two quick stories. One is a client I've been working with who is a surgeon, but all she ever wanted to do was to teach math. That's all she wanted to do, to teach math. And, compare a math teacher to what a surgeon makes, right?
Wow.
But, her parents pushed her to become a surgeon. And after working with her, she eventually transitioned into setting up some math academies. And that I guess was the way of her kind of showing her parents that, look, I can still, have a certain lifestyle because I can make money, but I am still living my passion, right? The other story was my mom. So a few years ago, I said to her, look, Mom, do you consider yourself successful? And she said, of course, without a doubt. I said, why? She says, look, I've had 5 children. All of you are healthy. All of you are doing pretty well for yourself. She says, look, that is something I call success. None of you have gotten into any trouble, anything of the sort. And she says, look, the only thing I've always wanted to do from when I was 18 was to become a teacher. She says, I started teaching. I retired as a teacher. I said, right now, I go on Facebook, I get messages from students all over the world telling the impact that I've had on their lives, all that kind of stuff. She says, look, I fulfilled my God-given purpose. I'm 70 odd year old right now. I'm happy. I'm so successful. So success is different things to different people. So if you're out there listening, whatever you believe in your heart that you need to do, just go at it and just do the best at it. Just do it from the point of view that you're doing it not to the honor and glory of man or your boss, but you're doing it to the honor and glory of God. And therefore, you will always deliver high performance. You'll always do it at the best of your ability.
Amen, sir. Amen. That's such a powerful message, I think it was John Maxwell that said that the secrets of success can be found in your daily routine. Typically speaking, what does the first 90 minutes of your day look like?
So my first 90 days. So first thing I do as soon as I get up is I said, thank you, God. As my feet hit the ground, I'm like, thank you, God. That's what I do now because, I've been through a brain aneurysm. I shouldn't be alive. So it's like, I'm happy to wake up to see another day. Right? So it's thank you, God. And then the next thing I do is I put on some praise and worship music because that's what does it for me, right?
Yeah.
A pastor on the platform doesn't do anything for me. If you want to see me, cry and get into vibes, yes, that's what does it for me, man. So, I put on some praise and worship, go in the kitchen, I prepare my meals because I start eating very healthy now. So I do like a smoothie, I prepare my lunch and some snacks, I pack that. And then, I'm out usually for the gym or a run or something like that. So, that's like the first 90 minutes of my day,
And what have been any of the key habits that have contributed towards your success?
So I think one of the key habits that has contributed to me is gratitude. because I believe success begins and ends with gratitude. So one of the things I do is that, people at my team knows that once I'm in the office, the first 60 minutes, I read a scripture, but I take up my gratitude book, and on one side, I write, I give thanks and gratitude for all the things that are happening, whether they're good or bad. And then on the other side, I write all the things, I give thanks for all the things that are to come. Because, one thing my grandmother always says is, she's like, look, don't ask God for stuff. Thank him for it, even if you don't get it. She's like, look, if you go to the shop to buy bread, and every minute you're asking the shopkeeper, one loaf of bread, he's gonna get annoyed, right? And she says it's almost the same principle with God. Her favorite saying was like, put it at the foot of the cross and leave it, right? So it's a matter of just thanking him. God, I thank you for this investment that's going to come into my business. I thank you for the opportunity, that kind of stuff. So,
Thank you in advance. And as a leader, then, what's been your biggest weakness as a leader?
Trying to do too many things at one time.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's something that I've been trying to work on. I've always had this belief that, there are 24 hours in a day, and if you squeeze it, you can get 30. But it doesn't work.
So I can relate to that.
Yeah. So it's trying to do too many things at one time. And I'm finding now, if I focus for a period of time on a particular task or project, it gets done much better.
I think it's worth pausing and asking a bit deeper into that, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. Because whether they say entrepreneurs have ADHD, and they say, sometimes we hit those points of struggle in our journey, and rather than press through the struggle in our business, we chase butterflies or we shiny objects, and we get distracted by stuff.
Yes.
And you've been through a lot. I know that you've done some great work, and you're successful in what you do internationally.
Yeah.
Somebody who's coming into it now, and they may be in a place where they're taking on too many things, and they've not seen any rewards yet. They've not seen any financial breakthrough, any recognition or influence or impact from their work, and that's their struggle right now.
Yeah.
How should they be thinking? How should they be?
The first thing I'll probably say to them is that they need to know that success is about gradual, continuous progress. Gradual, continuous progress. So when you hit those walls, or when you're in that ditch, it's about just keep doing stuff. Just keep doing this. Just keep ticking the task off your list, right? And eventually you will come through. It's like if I used to work in the airline industry, and you fly in an aircraft and you hit turbulence. The pilot doesn't just stop the plane in the middle of the turbulence, right? He keeps pushing through, right? He reduces speed and he keeps pushing through, because what? He knows he's gonna come through. He's gonna come through at the other end of the turbulence when he's flying smooth. So it's about that. When you feel like giving up, just say, okay, what's that one thing that I can do to push my business, my career, my life forward, and just do it.
Excellent, man. And what's your biggest strength?
I think my biggest strengths are, well, I would say two, and people have told me this. One is creativity and innovation. I can create things quite easily, quite quickly. And the other one is I think I have a gift of managing and developing people.
Okay.
And that's something that my team tells me that all the time. Everywhere I've worked, they've always told me that as well. Okay. So I think that's one of my strengths as a leader. Yeah.
I definitely got to connect to you, my friend Kofi. This is a side note. I was listening what I thought that came to my mind. I got to connect you to a friend of mine in Ghana, Kofi Osei Kusi. You guys are going to hit it off. That's just a bit of insight just came to me. Put it out there. Random thought. People listening, I say everyone's at different journeys who are listening right now. If you think back to the beginning of your leadership journey, What was holding you back at the very start from going into leadership and into the position you're in right now? If anything at all was holding you back, what might it have been?
So I think the thing is that I've always, ever since I was a child, I've always been propelled to the head of the queue in terms of leading. So it's not that so my leadership traits have been developed from I was pretty young, but in terms of getting to where I'm at now, I think it has been fair. I think it has been fear of failure, right? Because I keep telling people, if your dream doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. And when I think about the seed that has been planted in my heart 10 years ago, if I show you the thing that I've written, it's all about impacting 2 million people around the world. It's about building a business of a certain size. It's about amassing certain amount of capital so that I can offer scholarships, and I can work with young people and build schools, and it's massive. So it was the fear of taking on something of that size. I think that was kind of holding me back.
Fantastic, man. And people wouldn't think it. They'd hear your story and hear what you've done and think, how is it possible? But I think so many of us, if we felt that way, and I guess the value in these kind of conversations, though, for those who are listening, is that, hey, if you feel that way now, you're not on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and you're right. People might see us and might think, oh, they're conquering gladiators. They just go, but they don't know that deep down that there is just, we all have it. We all have these butterflies.
And an important part of what you said as well is that, because part of the fear of failure sometimes is that maybe God has placed a vision in our hearts, or a goal or a dream, and we can't see exactly how that's going to pay the bills right now.
Absolutely.
And that can cause us to say, you know what, part that, let me do what's going to bring in the money.
Yeah. And
there's a lesson in there. What's the message in there for us, Romeo?
So let me just give an analogy here. So it's like, and a lot of entrepreneurs see this. They have this big vision, and there are so many things happening in their heads, and they're like, okay, where do I start? But think about, if you're in London and you're driving to Birmingham in the middle of the night. You're driving in a car. The lights of the car shine about 200 meters, but you trust that as you drive the next 200 meters, the light will shine. And you just keep going until you get to Birmingham, right? You're not standing in London and seeing Birmingham, right?
It's good.
So that's the same way on your success journey. You just have to just trust that as you take a step, right? You just take the other step, right? But my grandmother, when she got old, and she was living in a house where we had stairs going up, and sometimes it would take her like half an hour to get up the stairs. And every time she take one step and she brings the other foot up, she would just say, thank God. And she takes another step, and and that's just how it is as far as your success journey is concerned. Just keep stepping, man. Just keep stepping.
It's great, man. That's great wisdom, great advice, man. I tell you. So, along your journey, who've been your most significant mentors? Tell me your top three, if you will, your top three mentors.
Okay, I would say that one was I when I was 17, 18, I got this job with a guy called Lothrop Fuller Duncan. He was the 47th richest man in the world, and I was like his gopher. I would go clean his apartment, pick him up, carry his bags at the airport, that kind of stuff. But he was a great mentor to me, and he kind of helped me to, a country boy coming from the village in Jamaica, he helped to shape my mind about what's possible. The other one was a guy called Paul Moreira, who I worked for in the airline industry. He was a super great mentor. And then my current mentor right now, Ann Watts, she's a former exec at HSBC. She's just been a phenomenal woman who has just kind of helped me to kind of shape myself as I got older.
Let me dig into those three relationships, if you will. Just let me ask you, what's the best piece of advice that you've gotten from each of those individuals?
Okay, so from Mr. Duncan, I remember I was on his yacht with him one day, and I overheard a conversation with him and one of his friends, and they were talking about buying a new jet, and he saw me and he said to me, Romeo, what is it that you'd want to do when you get older? And I said, I'd love to be a businessman like you. And he says, what's stopping you? And it's like, I said, I don't have any money, I don't have the skill. And he says to me, look, you can become anything you want to be. He says, anything you want to be, you can become. Let no one tell you that you can't, or let nothing stop you from doing it. And that stuck with me like a rock, I'm telling you.
Wow.
Paul Marrero, one of the biggest advice he gave to me, he says to me, as a manager, you need to remember that you are your team is your boss. He says your job as a manager is to ensure that you provide all the resources, all the training, everything that your team needs in order for them to function. Because if they perform, you look good. So he says that all you need to do as a manager is to make sure that they perform. And, that stuck with me as well. And
that's great. I like that, your team is your boss.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how I've been always living my life as a manager. Mm. And the other thing is, Anne has been great in terms of getting me to understand the importance of managing my finance. Mm. And, she one of the things she said to me is, she says, she says, the first thing you need to do is to ensure that you pay yourself first. Mm-hmm. She said, pay yourself first. She says, not that I'm telling you to owe people, but she says, if you have an insurance policy and you have children, make sure that that insurance policy gets paid, even if you don't eat and you don't pay anybody else, because that's your reassurance. That's you ensuring that your family would be okay, if something should happen. So, but there are many other advice. But, if you can allow me, I think the greatest piece of advice that I've ever gotten in my entire life came from my grandmother. And she was such a spiritual woman. Like, in my family, we said, my grandmother has a red line to God. Like in the White House, they have the red phone. Yeah, it's like when she prays, God says, yes, Iris, what you want, kind of a thing. And, she says to me, she said, faith as small as a mustard seed moves mountain. Mm. And I remember said to her, I think I was probably about in my teens, I said to her, what's a mustard seed? And she sent me for the ground black pepper. Mm-hmm. And she took one little speck from it and she says, that's a mustard seed. And she says that if you have faith as small as this, there's nothing that you can't do. Wow. Yeah. And I think that was probably the most profound advice I've ever gotten in my life.
Praise God. We're almost done now, yeah? A couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
Just thinking about the stage you're at right now. What's the one thing you're most fired up about right now?
So I'm very fired up about this program I'm about to launch, the Business Growth Accelerator. And it's pretty much geared towards, it's called the New Era of Entrepreneurship. And it's pretty much geared towards teaching entrepreneurs how to build and grow their businesses locally and globally. Because what I realize is that a lot of entrepreneurs are still operating their businesses on the old industrial revolution kind of methodology and way of doing things. When you look at and that works, but it takes a much longer time for you to be able to scale the business and to grow. If you look at the new kids on the block these days, the Ubers, the Airbnb, etc., their way of growing and scaling and running their business is completely different from it was then. So so for the past couple of years we've been kind of studying that, and we've come up with some good tips on how to be able to run a business using those kinds of practices and principles to grow and scale it.
Good man. And is there a book or a resource that you'd recommend for a leader or entrepreneur that's listening right now?
Yeah, I think one of the books that have kind of made, I read this book, and this was a book that Mr. Duncan recommended to me years ago as well. A book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Mm-hmm. I know it's probably one of the most read books around the world, but it's a very, very phenomenal piece of material. And if you can really read it, spend time to read it and understand it, then it would, I think it would really be very great, especially if you're an entrepreneur as well.
Cool. And how do we find out more about what you're doing? And give us your website address. Yeah. I know you got a book out as well.
Yes, Tell us about that. So I have a book out called Enthusiasm Unchained. Mm-hmm. How to unshackle success personally and professionally, and it's pretty much geared to people in corporate leaders. Okay. Just giving them tips and tools how to pretty much play the corporate game to win, and how to operate at the C-suite and boardroom level. And it's pretty much just taking my journey as I became a senior exec from the age of 25. And when I left corporate 3 years ago, I was director of a FTSE company, with about 800 million under spend. So, it's giving them all those tips of how I've maintained that position, and the fact that I sit on a number of boards right now, just giving them, what they need to do and how they need to operate there. So yes, that book is out and it's available on my website, which is www.romeoeffs.com. I also offer a lot of free tips and advice on social media, and all my social media handles are just at Romeo Effs.
That's great, man. That's great. Your website address again?
www.romeoeffs.com.
Romeo F spelled EFFS.com.
Yes.
And guys, all the links for Romeo's social media handles will be in the show notes. Website address, the books is recommended today. His book, you'll find all that in the show notes. Romeo, thank you so much for your time today, my brother.
No problem.
It's been encouraging. It's been stimulating. It's been rich. I know people have been encouraged today.
I hope so.
God bless you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we definitely look forward to connecting with you again. Guys, go and check out his website. Go and check out the books. Don't miss out on that stuff. Let your friends know about it and spread the word. God bless you, sir.
God bless you. All the best to you and the family, Errol.
Thank you, man.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you again for joining us today on the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast. I pray you've been inspired, you've been lifted, you've been encouraged to take your personal leadership to the next level. We really encourage you guys to just take action, make it happen, do something, start somewhere, go out and change the world in some way, big or small. Guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, please share with your friends, share with your loved ones, your colleagues, someone out there you think might benefit from hearing this great content. And if you want some more questions answering, you got a question, email me, Errol@errollawson.com. Or if you want a free 30 to 45 minute coaching session with myself around the leadership challenge or issue you're working on in your business, your church, or in your organization, please feel free to email me right away. We'll get you booked in. It's Errol@errollawson.com. Thank you again for listening. Go to our iTunes page, check it out, check out the previous episodes. Give us a nice review, that would be awesome. Really appreciate if you could do that for us. We really appreciate you just for being here and listening. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Rising Generation.